The house is a mausoleum tonight, all heavy shadows and creaking floors. I'm outside David's study, barefoot on the hardwood, the door frame cold against my palms. Splinters dig in as I press closer, holding my breath like it might give me away. Inside, his voice slices through the quiet, low, deliberate, the kind of tone he uses when he's already made up his mind. We can't afford both, Karen. A pause, papers rustling. Lauren's law school takes priority. Chloe can handle the diner. My chest tightens, a fist closing around my ribs. 22 years of being the afterthought crash into me. Every sidelined dream. Every be sensible lecture piling up like bricks. Lauren, the golden girl, gets her ivory tower. Me, I get grease stains and a hairnet at Joe's diner. Karen's voice wavers, barely audible. David, we promised both girls we'd help with their education. Lauren's got the drive, he cuts in, sharp as a blade. Chloe needs to face reality. She's not cut out for more than that. Not cut out. The words echo, hollowing me out. I see it now. Every time I brought home A's, every late night at the library, every shift I worked to prove I was enough. It was never enough. Not for him. Not compared to her. My fingers curl into the wood, nails biting. I should barge in, scream, throw something. But my legs won't move. I'm stuck, listening to my future get carved up like a Thanksgiving turkey. Scraps, tossed my way, while Lauren gets the feast. Karen tries again, softer. She'll be devastated. She'll adapt, David says, final. She's practical, that's her strength. Practical. The word tastes like ash. 22 years of swallowing their script, telling myself I was imagining the favoritism that they couldn't possibly mean it. Gone. Shattered in one overheard sentence. I step back, breath jagged, the hallway spinning. My keys jangle in my pocket, loud in the silence. I need out of this house, this lie, before I do something stupid, like believe them, or worse, confront them. The air's too thick, pressing down, and I'm halfway to the door when I hear footsteps behind me. Lauren's at the top of the stairs, perfect as always in her Nordstrom blouse, hair falling just so. The family night charade's about to start, dinner, smiles, pretending we're some Hallmark card. She spots me, keys in hand, jacket half on. Chloe, where you headed? Her voice is honeyed, laced with that fake concern she's mastered. I force the words out, sour on my tongue. Not feeling great. A lie, but easier than the truth clawing up my throat. She descends a step, brow furrowing. You okay? You look off. Perfect, isn't she? Always the star, always the one they notice. Perfect, actually, I snap, venom seeping in. Just like you. She flinches, caught off guard. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing, Lauren. I turn for the door, voice rising. Absolutely nothing, just like my future. Family night. What a damn joke. I'm the punchline they never laugh at, the extra who doesn't get a line. She's calling after me, Chloe, wait. But I'm done waiting. Done playing the good sister while they bankroll her dreams and leave me scraping plates. The door's in reach, freedom a step away. Her footsteps echo, quicker now. Is this about something I did? I almost laugh, bitter and sharp. No, it's about what they did, what they've always done. I don't turn back. Enjoy dinner, I say, hand on the knob. Tell Mom I'll pass. The door slams behind me, a satisfying crack splitting the night. The air hits my face, cold and clean, burning away the suffocation. I'm out, but the rage still churns, a live wire under my skin. They think I'll adapt? They'll see what I'm cut out for. Halfway down the driveway, gravel crunching under my sneakers, David's voice booms from the porch. Chloe Marie, get back here right now. I freeze, then turn slow, deliberate. He's silhouetted in the doorway, all broad shoulders and righteous glare. Karen and Lauren hover behind him, ghosts in the warm light, her crying, her pale. The perfect family tableau, minus the screw-up daughter who's finally had enough. Why? I spit, 22 years of swallowed words surging up. So, you can tell me to my face I'm not worth investing in? That Lauren's the only one who gets a future? His face darkens, jaw tight. You were listening. Hell yes, I was. I step closer, voice shaking but steady. And I'm glad. Finally got some honesty around here. Karen steps forward, hands wringing. Chloe, please, we can talk about this. Talk about what? I cut her off, eyes locked on David. How you funneled everything to Lauren while telling me to settle? To lower my expectations? To be practical? Lauren's voice is small. That's not fair. Life's not fair, sis, I snap, rounding on her. But you wouldn't know, would you? Golden girl with her law school fund? David's tone turns icy. That's enough. You're acting childish. Childish? I laugh, harsh and jagged. No, I've been the adult. Better grades, 2 jobs through high school while she twirled at dance lessons and tennis camp. I did everything right. And it still wasn't enough. Silence drops like a stone. Karen's sobbing now, soft and useless. Lauren's stricken, clutching the railing. David just stares, that same disappointed look I've memorized since I was 6. If you'd shown half Lauren's dedication, he starts. Dedication? I'm shouting now, fists clenched. I outworked her every day and you still picked her. Don't pretend this is about merit. More silence. My chest heaves, breath fogging in the night air. Karen's tears glisten, but they don't move me. Not anymore. If that's how you feel, David says finally, voice flat, maybe you should go. Calm down. Be reasonable. Don't worry. I back toward my car, keys biting my palm. I'm done being reasonable. Done being practical. Done being your disappointment. I slide into the driver's seat, hands trembling as I turn the key. Through the windshield, they're still there. David rigid, Karen crumbling, Lauren lost. The engine roars, drowning their whispers. I peel out, tires screaming, one thought blazing. I'll prove them wrong. Every damn one of them. Aunt Margaret's Victorian looms ahead, all steep gables and lavender whispers. Inside, it's warm, steady, a bunker against the storm I've left behind. I'm on her couch, hands still shaking around a chipped mug of chamomile tea. The burn in my throat matches the fire in my gut. Margaret settles into her leather armchair, 70 years of steel in her spine. David called, she says, eyes narrowing. Says you're overreacting. Naturally. The tea scalds, grounding me. Did he mention they've saved nothing for me? That I'm supposed to sling pancakes while Lauren plays lawyer? Her lips thin. Number convenient omission. A knock rattles the door. I flinch, tea sloshing. Margaret's hand on my shoulder steadies me, strong for her age. Karen's voice seeps through, pleading, Chloe, honey, we need to talk. Nothing left to say, I mutter, setting the mug down hard. Margaret rises, returns with an envelope. This is yours, she says, voice firm. Been saving it. Your chance. I open it. A bank statement, my name, numbers that mean freedom. Karen's still begging outside, but I don't hear her. Hope flickers, sharp and new, cutting through the dark. 3 months into my first semester, my dorm room's a war zone. Textbooks splayed like casualties, coffee mugs stacked like fortifications. I'm hunched over my laptop, numbers dancing on the screen, when my phone buzzes. Aunt Margaret's name glows, and I answer, expecting her usual check-in. Instead, her voice crackles with something heavier. Ethan's been arrested this morning. Securities fraud. It's all over the news. I freeze, fingers hovering over the keys. Ethan Carter, Lauren's perfect boyfriend, the golden boy who charmed David and Karen at every dinner. I switched to speaker, pulling up the local news site. There he is, 26 and smug, cuffed outside his sleek investment firm. Headlines scream Ponzi scheme, millions lost. My stomach twists, but not with the glee I'd expected. Lauren must be a wreck, I say, voice flat. That's not all, Margaret says, pausing like she's weighing her words. She worked in the firm's legal department. They're digging into what she knew, Chloe. The implication lands like a brick. Lauren, tangled in Ethan's mess. I lean back, staring at the ceiling, where cracks spiderweb like my family's lies. The cabin flashes in my mind. The one they wouldn't sell for my tuition, now up for grabs to cover her legal fees. How deep is it? I ask, already knowing it's bad. Margaret's sigh is answer enough. Deep enough they're selling the cabin. Your father's firm's stepping back, putting her on leave. The irony stings. They hoarded every dime for her, and now it's slipping through their fingers. I should feel triumphant, watching her pedestal crumble. Instead, there's a hollowness I can't shake, a bruise where satisfaction should be. My phone buzzes again, Lauren's number. I let it ring, watching her name flash like a distress signal. 3 times it lights up, relentless, before I finally pick up. Her voice spills out, raw and desperate. Chloe, I need your help. I don't answer right away, letting the silence stretch. 3 months ago, I'd have laughed her off. Now, with my own path carving out, business school, dean's list in sight, I feel the shift. Not forgiveness, not yet, but something's different. What do you want? I say at last, clipped and cold, waiting to hear how far she's fallen. Lauren's voice trembles through the phone, nothing like her usual polished tone. I saw Ethan's shady books months ago, she says, the words tumbling fast. Discrepancies in the paperwork. He convinced me it was just aggressive investing, that everyone did it. I wanted to believe him. A shuddering breath crackles the line, and I close my eyes, picturing her in that pristine condo, unraveling. I need your help, Chloe. Please, just listen. I lean against the dorm window, my reflection, ghostly in the glass. A girl who's outgrown her shadow, staring back. Why should I help you? I ask, voice low, each word deliberate. After everything? I wanted her to fall, dreamed of it those nights I scrubbed dishes, while she preened at galas. But this, her voice breaking, her perfect life imploding, feels less like victory and more like a mirror. She's not the enemy, just another puppet they strung up. Because you're smarter than me, she says. And it's not flattery, it's a confession. You always were. You saw through everything. David, Karen, their expectations. I need that clarity now. I don't reply, letting her words hang. She's right. I saw the cracks they plastered over, the favoritism they dressed up as practicality. But helping her means wading back into their mess, and I've just started clawing my way out. What do you need? I finally ask, resigned. She hesitates, then spills it. The investigators? They'll give me immunity if I testify against Ethan. Mom and Dad want loyalty, but he's a monster in an expensive suit. I can't talk to them. They don't get it. Her laugh is bitter, cutting. You're the only one who won't be shocked I failed. Take the deal, I say, sharp and sure. Burn it all down. Silence stretches, heavy with her doubt. Will you come with me to the prosecutors? She asks, small. I think of my morning class. The midterm I should be prepping for. When? Tomorrow, 9 o'clock. Another pause. I know I don't deserve it. No, you don't, I cut in. But I'll be there. Not for you. For what's real. I hang up, staring at my reflection again. Revenge was the plan. But this feels bigger, cleaner. I open my laptop, pulling up fraud cases, ready to arm her with the truth. Morning light slants through my dorm window, catching dust motes as they drift. My phone pings twice. Dean's list notification, top of my class, then a news alert. Lauren's sentencing, 18 months probation, community service. I sit on my bed, staring at both. The irony thick enough to choke on. My triumph, her tumble. Karma's got a twisted sense of humor. David's call breaks the quiet, and I answer despite myself. We're having dinner at Lorenzo's tonight, he says. No greeting, all business. We need to discuss Lauren's situation. His voice is strained, a crack in his usual steel. I watch students stream past outside, heading to class, their lives simple compared to this tangle. I've got exams, I say, dodging. This is family, Chloe, he presses. More important than any test. I bite back a laugh. Funny how family wasn't more important than Lauren's law school when it was my future on the line. That's not fair, I say, slipping out before I can stop it. Actually, it's exactly fair. He sighs, heavy. She's lost everything, her career, her reputation. His voice cracks, and I hear the desperation he's never shown me. And you're still more worried about her than proud of me, I say, quieter now, the truth slipping free. Silence stretches, taut and telling. What do you mean? He finally asks. Made Dean's List? I say, flat. First semester. Not that you asked. More silence. I can almost see him recalibrating, trying to slot this into his world, where Lauren's the achiever and I'm the spare. That's wonderful, he says, belated. But right now, Lauren needs help, I finish, laughing harsh. Good luck with dinner. I hang up, tossing the phone aside. A knock pulls me back. Lauren, in jeans and a plain sweater, no more designer sheen. Margaret told me about Dean's List, she says, hovering. Congrats. Thanks. I return to my desk, leaving the door open. She steps in, hesitant. They don't get it, do they? How hard you've worked. I shrug. They don't want to. Doesn't fit their story. She nods, then drops it. They're asking you for money tonight, for my legal fees. The cabin sale fell through. My hand still over my laptop. Let them try, I say, cold. I've got a deadline, an internship I can't miss. She leaves, and I dive into my proposal, their pleas piling up unread on my screen. Outside Joe's diner, the neon buzzes faintly, a relic of my supposed destiny. Lauren's inside, tying on my old apron, hands shaky, manicured nails clashing with the worn fabric. Michael Grant stands beside me, checking his watch. Your sister starts training today, he says, eyeing her through the window. Interesting choice. Desperate times, I reply, adjusting my blazer, smooth, expensive, a far cry from polyester aprons. It's the only place that'd take her with her record. The bell chimes as we step in, and Lauren's head snaps up, eyes widening at my business attire. I pretend not to notice, leading Michael to our booth. Coffee, black, I say. Same, Michael adds. She hurries off, nearly spilling the pot, and I pull out my laptop. The door chimes again. David and Karen, here for her first day, their faces falling when they spot me. Chloe, Karen starts stepping closer. We didn't expect... Clearly, I cut her off, turning to Michael. Projections show a 30% revenue bump since your new system. David looms over our table, shadow cutting across my screen. You look well, he says, stiff. Business suits you. Lauren returns, coffee trembling in her hands. It's fine, I say, taking it. They're here for you, not me. Michael and I have work. David clears his throat. Actually, we hope to talk, both of you, about the family trust. I pause, fingers hovering. What trust? Your grandfather's, he says, glancing at Michael. Maybe privately? Michael's my partner, I reply, cool. Say it here. Karen touches Lauren's arm. Sweetheart, take your break. David presses on. It was meant for you both, but with Lauren's fees and probation, you want my half? I finish, voice slicing through the diner's hum, to prop up her mistakes. Karen pleads, she's trying to rebuild by taking my inheritance? I stand, gathering my papers. After everything? Chloe, please, Lauren says, notepad clutched tight. I didn't know they'd... Save it, I cut in, meeting her eyes. David always said Joe's was my ceiling. Practical, right? Now look at us. His face hardens. That's enough. No, I say, turning to Michael. I've doubled our profits in 6 months because they taught me nothing's handed to you. They were right. The diner quiets, eyes averted. Keep the trust, I add, heading out. Payment for showing me who I could be, nothing like you. Michael follows, pausing outside. Quite a scene, he says, then smiles. Regional manager Chloe, you've earned it. Through the window, Lauren wipes tables, David and Karen hovering, still fixing her. My life's outgrowing them, and it feels damn good. 6 months into regional manager, Aunt Margaret's death hits like a sucker punch. A text from Lauren of all people. Aunt Margaret's gone. I'm in my Chicago office, the skyline glittering beyond the glass, when it lands. My reflection stares back, ghostly against the quarterly reports blurring into nonsense. I book the first flight home, landing at her Victorian, where David's car already squats in the driveway. They're here, no doubt picking over her things like vultures. The keys still under the ceramic toad, cold, in my hand, and I step inside, voices drifting from her study. We have to tell her, Karen's saying, hushed, before she finds out some other way. I step into the doorway and they jump, David mid-stride, Karen twisting her ring, Lauren in Margaret's chair with a familiar envelope. Tell me what? I ask, voice steady despite the tremor in my gut. David steps forward, hands raised. Chloe, we didn't expect you so soon. Clearly. My eyes catch the open safe, papers strewn like confetti. What are you doing? Lauren holds up the envelope, voice cracking. Margaret left letters, recordings. She documented everything. Karen whispers, all our talks about you and Lauren, the college fund. I cut in, bitter. How you made me her backup, I knew that. No, Lauren says, eyes wide. How they used us both, played us against each other. Even Margaret's money was their plan. The room tilts, air thinning. What? David reaches for me, but I jerk back. Sarah, we can explain. Don't touch me. I snatch the envelope. Inside, a USB drive and Margaret's handwriting. My dearest Chloe, your parents' manipulation runs deeper. The money was evidence. Every transaction, every call. David's firm embezzled for years, using you and Lauren as covers. You used us, I say, voice low, lethal. Both of us. David's jaw tightens. We were protecting the family. The firm was failing. Lauren makes a broken sound, and I see it. Their chessboard, us as pawns. My phone buzzes. Michael. I ignore it, turning to Lauren. What else? She stands. Evidence to expose it all. Margaret wanted us to decide together. The USB weighs like lead, a choice dangling. I meet her gaze, seeing not the golden girl, but a mirror of my own scars. The conference room at Grant Restaurant Group feels too small for the storm brewing. Lauren sits beside me, her borrowed blazer stiff on her shoulders, while Michael studies the USB's contents on the projector. Spreadsheets, signatures, shell companies in our names. This isn't just embezzlement, he says, pausing on David's scrawl linking his firm to Ethan's Ponzi scheme. It's a sophisticated fraud, years deep, using you both as fronts. Lauren's voice is hollow. The perfect cover story. The door swings open, and David strides in, Karen and their lawyer trailing. His confidence falters when he sees Lauren next to me, not against me. What's this about? He demands, trying to steer the room. Your mother and I have a charity function. I lean back, calm as steel. Sit down. You'll want to hear this. Michael clicks to the next slide. David's signature, undeniable. Where'd you get these? The lawyer snaps, leaning forward. Margaret kept receipts, I say, locking eyes with David. All of them, he blusters. This is absurd. Lauren, you don't believe... She cuts him off, steady. I testified against Ethan. I can testify against you too. Karen's hands tremble. We were protecting you both. By making me the fall guy? Lauren's laugh is sharp, bitter. By pushing Chloe into restaurants for a legit front to launder cash? I slide 2 folders across the table, voice cutting through their panic. Option 1. We hand this to the FBI. Prison. Firm collapses. Thompson name ruined. Option 2. You sign these, transfer the firm to us, retire quietly to that Florida beach house you bought with stolen money. Never contact us again. You can't be serious, David says, standing, face red. Everything I built was built on lies, I finish, seated, unshaken. Everything you made us believe about ourselves, each other, your game. Karen pleads, we're your parents. We love you. Lauren's voice cracks. You loved what we could do for you. There's a difference. Michael clears his throat. FBI's on standby. 10 minutes to decide. David reaches for the folders, but I pull them back. One more thing. Joe's diner goes to the staff. They've earned it. He blinks, confused. What does that matter? It's where this started, I say, smiling faintly. Where you thought I belonged. Call it karma. Minutes tick by, Lauren's hand gripping mine under the table. They whisper with their lawyer, then David signs, muttering, You'll regret this. Lauren adds her signature, firm. We already understand, I say, standing. That's the problem. They leave, defeated, and Michael grins. You're CEO of a major firm now. Co-CEO, I correct, glancing at Lauren. She nods. I pass the bar. Time to clean up their mess. We walk out together, the sun sinking over the city, their car vanishing into traffic. The key to Margaret's house feels heavier tonight, unlocking the door one last time. The realtor's sign sways in the yard, casting shadows across the empty rooms. Most furniture's gone, just echoes and essentials left. Lauren's footsteps follow me into the study, where she holds up a DVD case labeled for Chloe and Lauren. Found this in the safe, she says, voice soft. We sit on the floor, my laptop humming as Margaret's face fills the screen, recorded months before she slipped away. My dear girls, she begins, eyes piercing even through time. If you're watching, you've uncovered your parents' truth. But there's more. They manipulated me too, made me think I was shielding you by keeping their secrets. I waited too long to see protection means letting the truth hurt. The camera shifts, documents, recordings, a network of fraud beyond David and Karen. I'm not proud I delayed, she continues, but I needed you strong enough for what's next. Chloe's business mind, Lauren's legal skill. Together, you're more than they ever dreamed. Lauren pauses it, gripping my arm. She planned this. All of it. I shake my head, understanding clicking. No, she gave us the tools to plan it ourselves. We finish in silence, her words sinking in. At the desk, empty now, Lauren breaks it. Joe's staff signed the ownership papers today. They're renaming it Margaret's. I smile, picturing David's dismissal, Joe's as my ceiling, now a tribute to the aunt who saw my sky. The FBI wants David again, Lauren adds. Links to 3 more firms. Let them, I say, fingers tracing the desk's edge. We've got our own empire to build. She studies me. Do you think we're still their pawns, becoming what they wanted? I stand, firm. Number? They wanted us rivals, tearing each other down. Instead, we're stronger together. We gather our things, pausing at the door. That night you heard them about Joe's, Lauren says, hesitant. Was that when it changed? I lock up, glancing at Margaret's garden, still blooming. Number it changed when I stopped letting their version of me define who I could be. She nods and we part for our cars, merger meeting tomorrow, Grant Thompson Holdings rising. In the quiet, I shed their Chloe, driving into a future we chose, not them. That's the sweetest win. Have you ever felt like you didn't belong even when you were supposed to? I remember the exact moment I realized I was invisible. I was 14 years old, and my mom, Debbie, asked me to step out of the family photo. "Come on, Nancy, you don't match the vibe," she said, her voice light and breezy like it was no big deal. I stood there, frozen, watching as my mother, my stepfather, and my two step-siblings, Chloe and Ethan, lined up for their picture-perfect moment. It was the kind of photo that gets posted on Facebook with captions like, "family goals." Only, I wasn't part of that goal. Debbie smiled for the camera, the same smile she always wore when she was pretending everything was fine. As if my heart wasn't breaking into 1,000 pieces. I stood off to the side, clutching my arms to my chest, trying not to cry. That was the first time I truly understood what it felt like to be overlooked, ignored by the one person who was supposed to see me. And no matter how hard I tried to hold myself together, it didn't matter. My mom had already decided I wasn't part of the picture. Later that night, while the rest of the family sat down for dinner, I stayed in my room. I couldn't bring myself to face them. Instead, I buried my hurt in my sketchbook, drawing pictures of a world where I belonged, where I was seen, not cropped out, not forgotten. It wasn't a perfect world, but it was mine. A place where I could exist without having to shrink myself to fit into someone else's idea of what I should be. A place where I didn't have to pretend that I didn't mind being invisible. A place where my art mattered, where I mattered. But even as I drew, part of me knew it wouldn't be enough. Not in a world where fitting in meant everything, and I never seemed to. My childhood wasn't always this way. At least, not at first. When I was younger, I wasn't invisible. I was just quiet. The kind of kid who kept her head down, got good grades, and didn't ask for much. I stayed out of trouble, and in return, my family seemed content to let me be. But that all changed when Debbie married Todd. Suddenly, the family wasn't just me and her anymore. Todd had 2 kids, Chloe and Ethan, who were loud, athletic, and eager to be the center of attention. It didn't take long for Debbie to shift her focus entirely to them. "Look at Chloe's dance recital photos," she'd gush, as if I didn't have a single talent of my own. Ethan would talk about his soccer trophies like they were the greatest achievements in the history of mankind. And all the while, my drawings, the ones I'd worked so hard on, sat on the shelf, gathering dust. It was like I didn't fit the mold they wanted, I didn't have the right look or the right interests, and it didn't matter how hard I tried. No one noticed. I stopped asking to be in the photos after that. I stopped trying to be seen, but I still held on to the hope that one day, someone would look at me and say, "I see you." Little did I know that person would not be my mother. And that day, when everything changed, was still years away. After Debbie married Todd, everything in our house changed. I wasn't just a kid anymore. I was a shadow. Todd had 2 kids, Chloe and Ethan, and they were everything I wasn't. They were loud, confident, and always at the center of attention. I couldn't figure out how they did it. How could they take up so much space in a room and make everyone else seem irrelevant? They were perfect for the life Debbie wanted. They fit into the new family she'd created, one that included fresh photos for every milestone, every vacation, every special moment. Suddenly, I wasn't even allowed to share the frame. At first, I tried to stay out of their way. I didn't want to rock the boat. I stayed in my corner, doing my homework, keeping my head down, hoping they wouldn't notice how badly I wanted to be part of that world. I'd see photos of the family trips they went on, the outings with matching t-shirts, and I'd wonder if I was invisible. Not just to them, but to Debbie too. I wasn't included in the family photos, not in the way Chloe and Ethan were. It didn't matter that I was right there, smiling for the camera, my face blurry from where they cropped me out. Or maybe I wasn't even in the frame at all. Every time Debbie posted pictures online, she'd smile brightly beside her new family, while I was either edited out or stuck off to the side, blurry and unnoticed. I couldn't help myself. I started to ask, "Do you not want me in the pictures?" I'd say nervously, hoping for some kind of acknowledgement. But every time I asked, it felt like a mistake. Debbie would look at me like I'd just asked her to do something outrageous. She'd roll her eyes and sigh, the kind of sigh that made it clear I was being unreasonable. "Nancy, you're so sensitive," she'd say, as if my feelings were some flaw, as if wanting to be seen was something I should apologize for. That phrase, "you're too sensitive," became her go-to response whenever I dared to point out how left out I felt. The more she said it, the more I believed it. Maybe I was too sensitive. Maybe I was the problem. Maybe I wasn't supposed to be a part of this new family after all. Maybe my presence wasn't as important as I thought. It was the holidays that sealed it for me. Christmas came, and once again, Debbie's attention was completely on Chloe and Ethan. They opened expensive gifts, new bikes, iPads, while I sat there with a notebook that had my name misspelled on the cover. When I opened it, I didn't feel the joy I was supposed to. Instead, I felt smaller, more insignificant than ever. Debbie smiled at me like everything was normal. "You like drawing, don't you?" she said, almost dismissively. It wasn't a question. It was a reminder of how little she truly knew me, how little she cared. That year, I realized I wasn't just being ignored. I was being disregarded completely, as if I didn't even matter enough to be acknowledged. It wasn't the gift itself that hurt. It was the way Debbie acted, like everything was fine, like I should be grateful for whatever scraps were thrown my way. It wasn't until later that night, after dinner, that I realized something. I didn't need their approval. I didn't need their validation. The pain I felt from their neglect was not going to define me. But the next few months were hard. They were filled with quiet moments of longing to be part of a family that didn't want me, longing to be seen, heard, and loved in the way I saw others loved. But I kept my head down because that's what I had learned to do. When it got too much to bear, I'd escape. I started spending weekends at my Grandma Lily's house, a small yellow home on the outskirts of town. It was quiet there, no judgment, no expectations. Just warm cookies, cups of cinnamon tea, and the smell of lavender that seemed to cling to the air. Grandma Lily always saw me. She never made me feel like I had to prove myself. She never told me I was too sensitive. Instead, she asked about my drawings, about my dreams. It was at Grandma's house that I started to believe in myself again. She never asked questions that made me feel small. She just gave me space to be who I was, without expectations or judgment. She saw me for who I was, not as someone who had to fit into a picture. "Have you ever thought about doing this for real?" she asked me one afternoon while I was sketching something new on my iPad. I didn't know what she meant at first. "Doing what?" I asked. "Graphic design, darling. You have an eye for it. Why not turn your talent into something more?" At first, I laughed it off. I didn't even know what graphic design was, but Grandma was persistent. She signed me up for a weekend class at the library, then another, and another. Every weekend, we'd talk about what I was learning, and Grandma would encourage me to keep every design I made. "You'll need it later," she'd say, always with that soft, knowing smile. I didn't know it then, but she was preparing me for a life that was so much bigger than the one I had at home. She was showing me that there was more to life than the suffocating family I'd been born. There was a world waiting for me. I just had to believe that it was possible. As the months passed, I spent less time at home and more time at Grandma's. My sketches became more detailed and more refined. I didn't have to fit into their picture. I was starting to create my own. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't anger that drove me. It was a quiet, steady determination to prove that I could build a life that had nothing to do with the family that had left me behind. And Grandma Lily, she was the only one who saw me. She always had. There were weekends at Grandma Lily's that felt like they could last forever. The quiet hum of the house, the smell of cinnamon tea, the soft rustle of leaves outside. It was a sanctuary. I didn't have to pretend there, didn't have to hide how much I hurt. With Grandma, I could just be. She never told me that my art was good because I needed to hear it. She told me because she saw it. There's a difference. I had spent years with my art hidden in the background, tucked away in corners where no one cared enough to look. But Grandma looked. And she looked with so much belief that it was impossible not to see myself through her eyes. Grandma Lily wasn't like Debbie. She didn't see me as someone to fix, someone to mold. She saw the things I could become before I even knew them myself. And it was at her kitchen table, surrounded by stacks of my drawings and sketches, that I first started to believe maybe this art thing wasn't just a way to pass the time. One Saturday afternoon, as I was putting the finishing touches on a digital design I'd been working on for weeks, Grandma sat down next to me. Her warm hands rested on the edge of the table, her fingers tracing the outline of the sketchbook I had on the table, the one filled with designs for fictional magazines and clothing lines. "I think you've got something here, Nancy," she said. "Have you ever thought about doing this for a living? You've got a real talent." I looked up at her, my heart skipping a beat. "What do you mean?" "I mean, you could make this a career. You could turn these designs into something real, something important." I didn't know what she was talking about. I was just drawing because it made me feel alive. After all, it was the one thing in my life that felt like mine. But Grandma had a way of making things seem possible. She signed me up for a graphic design class at the community center. It was an old building, with wooden floors that creaked when you walked across them, but the people there, the teacher, the other students, made it feel like a new world. A world where I didn't have to shrink myself, where my voice, my work mattered. I couldn't afford it, of course. Debbie wouldn't even have considered it, dismissing anything outside her carefully curated life. But Grandma never let money stop her. She wrote the check herself and handed it to me with a wink. "Consider it your first step toward something big." That class changed everything. I started to see my work differently. I wasn't just sketching for fun anymore, I was creating. I was building a foundation. The more I learned, the more I realized that I had the potential to do something important. I wasn't the overlooked child who didn't matter. I was someone who had something to offer. Even when I went back home, the spark that Grandma had lit inside me never faded. But things at home? They hadn't changed. Debbie still didn't see me. She didn't notice that I was out late at class or that I was spending hours hunched over my laptop, working on new designs. She didn't even care to ask where I went when I skipped family events, or why I never seemed to care about Chloe's new clothes or Ethan's soccer games. And I didn't care either. It wasn't that I didn't love them, but I had started to realize that I wasn't the problem. I had spent years thinking that if I just tried harder, if I just fitted in more, everything would be okay. But it wasn't about fitting in. It was about finding a place where I belonged, a place where I was accepted for who I was. And that place was in my art, in the work I was doing every night at Grandma Lily's house. She didn't judge me for how I dressed, for the way I spent my weekends, or how quiet I was. She just saw the potential in me, and for the first time, I began to see it too. By the time I turned 16, I had started to think more seriously about the future. The dream wasn't just a vague hope anymore. It was something tangible, something I could build. I spent hours on my designs, refining them, pouring myself into each project as though it was my only chance to escape. But Debbie was still Debbie. She didn't notice the changes. She didn't see the late nights or the projects I was working on, let alone care about the progress I was making. One afternoon, when I came home after another graphic design class, she handed me a shopping list, one of the many she'd asked me to run for her over the years. It was nothing new. Shampoo, snacks, candles, name brand, of course. She shoved a $10 bill into my hand as if that would cover it. I looked at the list, then back at her. "This isn't enough to buy everything on the list." Debbie rolled her eyes. "Well, use your own money then. You're always at Grandma's house anyway. I'm sure she spoils you." There it was, that dismissive, condescending tone. She didn't care about me, not really. I wasn't her daughter anymore. I was just a tool, an accessory to manage, a kid who didn't fit into her picture-perfect family. And if I didn't fit, it didn't matter. It hit me then with quiet finality. I didn't fit in this life. But I was building my own, and I wasn't going to let her or anyone make me feel like I didn't belong. So I kept at it. I kept designing. I kept learning. I kept dreaming of a life that didn't depend on Debbie's approval. And as I did, I started to feel like I was finally on the path to something I could be proud of. Something real. Grandma Lily never stopped supporting me, never stopped believing in me. Every weekend, she'd sit with me while I worked, telling me, "Keep everything, Nancy. One day, you'll need it. And when the world sees what they missed, you'll be ready." And I believed her. High school was when I realized I wasn't just invisible. I was completely irrelevant. I kept doing my work and improving my designs, but no one noticed. No one asked what I was doing in my free time or why I was always scribbling in my sketchbook. I wasn't like Chloe, who had a full social calendar, or Ethan, who was constantly on the go with his sports. They were always the center of attention, always the ones who mattered. At school, it was the same thing. I blended into the background, a quiet observer of everyone else's lives. The kids who sat at the popular tables were all loud and full of jokes, while I sat off to the side, watching, sketching when I could, but never quite fitting in. My teachers liked me, sure, but they liked me because I kept my head down, did my work, and never made waves. When my report card came out with an A in every subject, no one said anything, not even Debbie. But when Chloe made the honor roll, Debbie posted it on Facebook like Chloe had just discovered the cure for cancer. She called it "Our Little Genius." And there was a whole gallery of pictures from the ceremony. I couldn't help but feel a sting, but I didn't say anything. I had stopped expecting anything from her. It wasn't just that I was ignored at home, it was that I was actively erased. I wasn't in the family photos. I wasn't in any of the group pictures that Debbie loved to post on Instagram. Chloe and Ethan were always front and center, smiling in their matching outfits. Meanwhile, I stood on the edge, cropped out, or just blurry in the background. I tried not to care, but it hurt. It hurt in ways I couldn't explain, not even to myself. Every time they posted those photos, every time they planned something without me, I felt a growing ache in my chest, like I was being erased from my own life. It wasn't just that I was invisible, it was that I was actively unwanted. There was no family ski trip for me, no beach days where I could pretend to fit in. When I asked why I wasn't invited, the answers came easily. "You don't like cold weather," Debbie would say, or "You burn too easily." But I knew better. It wasn't about the weather or the sun, it was about me. It was always about me not fitting into their picture of perfection. By the time I reached my senior year, I had given up. I didn't try to fit in anymore. I didn't try to get noticed. I had accepted that my place in this family was as an afterthought, a ghost who only appeared when it was convenient for everyone else. But I didn't care. I had my sketchbook. I had my art. I had the designs that were slowly but surely shaping my future. Every time they went on another trip, I stayed home. I never asked where I was going or why I wasn't invited. I didn't want to hear the excuses anymore. I packed a bag and I went to Grandma Lily's house. It was my refuge, my place where I was seen, where I was allowed to exist without question. Every weekend, Grandma would ask me how my classes were going, what I had learned, and how my designs were evolving. She'd sit with me at her kitchen table, quietly watching me work, telling me, "Keep going, Nancy. Don't stop. One day, they'll all see what they missed." She was right, but I didn't know that yet. What I did know was that the world outside of my family was different. It was bigger, and I was going to make sure I found my place in it, even if I had to do it alone. High school was a blur of loneliness, of silence that no one bothered to fill. But every night, in my room or at Grandma's, I worked. I poured everything into my art because it was the only thing I had left. And slowly, it became something real. No one saw it, not yet. But they would. I was starting to believe it. By the time I reached my junior year, I had made up my mind. I wasn't going to wait around for my family to see me. I wasn't going to let their disregard define my future. I was going to build my own. Grandma Lily had always said, "Don't let anyone shrink your world, Nancy. You're bigger than they want you to believe." She was right. It took me a while to understand that, but I finally did. The more I worked on my designs, the more I realized how much potential I had. But I needed more. I needed to push myself, to take what was in my head and turn it into something the world could see. That's when I started researching colleges. It wasn't easy. I knew Debbie would never approve. She would scoff at the idea of me pursuing anything other than a real career, something practical, like law or medicine, anything that would put me in the same category as Chloe and Ethan, who were already on their paths to successful futures. But I didn't care. I was done trying to fit into their world. I spent hours at the library, poring over design programs and portfolios of professional designers. I didn't have a mentor in the field, but I found my way. Every time I felt doubt creeping in, I thought of Grandma's encouragement, her words. Keep everything, Nancy. One day, you'll need it. It was like a little flame inside me, pushing me to keep going. But as much as I worked, as much as I pushed myself, there was still that looming obstacle, Debbie. She was the last person I expected support from, but in her silence, I realized something. She didn't care enough to ask what I was doing. She didn't care about my dreams, my goals, or the fact that I was building something real for myself. If I wanted to succeed, it was going to be because of my work, not because of anything she gave me. I couldn't afford art school on my own. My part-time job at the local cafe didn't make a dent in tuition costs. But Grandma Lily wasn't going to let me be held back. She had been quietly setting aside money for years, money that I had no idea about. One night, after I'd told her about a design competition I was planning to enter, she sat me down and handed me an envelope. Inside was a letter from a trust fund set up for me by my late grandfather. It wasn't much, but it was enough to get me started. "You'll need it, darling," she said, smiling through tears. "I know you're going places, Nancy, and I want to make sure you get there." That was it. That was the moment I knew I could do this. Grandma's belief in me and her quiet support gave me everything I needed to move forward. The rest, I would have to make happen myself. The next few months were a blur of applications, essays, and sleepless nights working on my portfolio. But it wasn't as hard as I expected. For the first time, I was working on something that was mine, something that mattered to me, and that made all the difference. I didn't care if Debbie noticed, or if Chloe or Ethan thought I was wasting my time. I was doing this for me. When the acceptance letters came in, I felt a mixture of disbelief and exhilaration. I had been accepted into 3 art schools, 2 of which offered full scholarships. But it wasn't until I looked at the letter from the prestigious private university in New York that I truly understood the gravity of what I'd done. I had earned a spot in one of the top visual design programs in the country. My dreams were no longer just dreams, they were a reality. Yet, as I held the acceptance letter in my hands, I knew something was missing. Debbie didn't even notice the letter when it arrived. It sat unopened on the counter for days. She didn't ask about it. She didn't care. That was when I realized that I didn't need her to see me anymore. I didn't need her approval to make my dreams come true. The validation I was seeking, the acceptance I longed for, wasn't going to come from her. It had to come from within. The day after my graduation, I packed my things and left. There was no party, no photos, no celebration with my family. It wasn't that I didn't want to celebrate. It was that I didn't want them to be part of it. My departure wasn't a rejection. It was a necessary step toward my future, one that didn't rely on their approval. Grandma Lily helped me pack. She made sure I had everything I needed, reminding me again, "Keep going, Nancy. Don't look back." I didn't. I boarded the bus with my thrift store suitcase and my dreams packed tightly in my chest. I was ready. Ready to step into a world that had no expectations of me, other than the ones I created for myself. And this time, when I looked ahead, I saw a future I could truly be proud of. By the time I finished college, I had completely transformed. Not just in terms of my skills as a designer, but in the way I saw myself. No longer was I the girl who faded into the background, the daughter who never quite belonged. I had become someone I was proud of. I had built a life on my terms, without the need for anyone's approval. In my first year of college, I felt like I had been given a chance to start over. It wasn't perfect, nothing ever is, but it was a world where I could finally breathe. My professors recognized my talent, and my classmates supported me. I felt like I had found my people, a place where I wasn't invisible, where my voice mattered. It was liberating. Every project I took on felt like a victory, not just over the doubts that had haunted me, but over the family that had ignored me for so long. And then came the breakthrough. My roommate, Tessa, was a whirlwind of energy. She was outgoing, chaotic, and hated everything I made. One day, after seeing some of my designs, She showed them to a friend who worked at a boutique in the city. They needed someone to design their seasonal lookbook, and Tessa, without even asking me, had passed along my portfolio. I was hesitant, unsure if my work was ready for the real world, but she was relentless. The boutique hired me for the job, and it was my first real gig as a designer. It wasn't much, but it was everything to me. I spent sleepless nights working, pouring my heart and soul into the project. When it was finished, they posted my designs on their social media, and that's when things began to snowball. One client turned into 2, then 3, and suddenly, I was balancing schoolwork with real-world projects. My name was starting to get out there. The opportunities kept coming. A local ad agency hired me part-time, and after graduation, a brand consulting firm offered me a summer internship. I threw myself into my work, staying up late, working weekends, and stacking my resume with everything I could. Slowly but surely, I was climbing the ladder. I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was thriving. All the while, I kept my head down, letting my work speak for itself. But I wasn't just building a career. I was building a life, one that was entirely mine, one that didn't depend on anyone else's approval or validation. It wasn't about proving them wrong, not really. It was about proving that I could stand on my own, that I could create something out of nothing. As I moved up in the industry, I started to feel something I had never felt before: respect. My family, on the other hand, remained in their bubble. Debbie continued posting her perfect family photos, Chloe's latest achievements, Ethan's sports victories, and their ever-growing collection of family moments. But I wasn't in those pictures, not anymore. It wasn't even a passing thought. And I didn't care. I had built something that no one could take from me. The real breakthrough came when I was invited to a national design conference where my student work was showcased. That night, after my presentation, I was approached by someone from CNV, a marketing firm known for launching big names in fashion and lifestyle. They had seen my work, and they were interested. The executive director sent me an email directly. "Nancy, your eye for storytelling is rare. Let's talk." That email changed everything. I had just graduated, and I was already in demand. Within weeks, I received an offer to work with CNV, and by the time I was 27, I was the lead creative strategist at one of the top firms in the industry. The dreams I had once sketched out in my room at Grandma's house were no longer just fantasies. They were a reality. The day I got the job offer from CNV, I sat in my office, staring at the email. I was still in shock. I had come so far from the girl who stood alone on the sidelines of a family photo. But as I sat there, the weight of the moment started to sink in. I had made it, on my own, without the support of my family, and then, not long after that, the call came. It was a Thursday morning, and I was in the break room, sipping coffee and preparing a pitch for a new client, when my assistant knocked and handed me a note. I opened it to see that Channel 7's morning show had confirmed. They wanted to feature me as part of their Young Visionaries segment. They wanted to tell my story. The segment aired the following Monday. The anchors smiled as they introduced me, asking about my journey from an overlooked teen to a creative leader. They pulled up old photos of my designs from college, and the comments flooded in. Inspiring, talented, and where has she been hiding? I wasn't watching when it aired, but I could imagine Debbie sitting there, her fork frozen in her hand as she saw me on TV. I wasn't the invisible child she had ignored. I was everywhere. It was a Thursday afternoon when the message came. My phone buzzed, interrupting the quiet hum of my office. I glanced at it, expecting another work-related email, but instead, it was from Debbie, my mother. The words seemed almost absurd as I read them. "Nancy, it's your mother. My 50th birthday is next month. We're doing a nice brunch at Belmore Gardens. Very exclusive. You probably don't know it. Be there at 11 a.m. Sharp. Don't embarrass me." That was it. No, how are you? No, I'm proud of you. Just a demand, framed as a royal summons. I stared at the screen for a moment, feeling the weight of the years of neglect flood back. The years of being ignored, erased, and pushed aside. And then, strangely, I felt a burst of laughter bubble up inside me. Not out of spite, but because it was almost ridiculous. 13 years of silence, and this was the grand comeback. A brunch invite masquerading as a demand. I didn't reply immediately. I let the message sit there, staring at me, like a ghost from the past that was too late to be acknowledged. But the more I thought about it, the clearer it became. This wasn't about reconciling. It was about me showing up to fulfill her narrative, to be the daughter she could parade around like an accessory. I wasn't going to play that game. Instead of deleting the message, I laughed. A quiet, almost amazed laugh. And then I did something I hadn't expected myself to do. I pulled out a small envelope from my desk drawer and slid it across the table to my assistant, asking her to handle it. The certificate inside? An all-inclusive luxury spa retreat in the Swiss Alps. Private chef, mountain view suite, chauffeur-driven car. 5 figures of luxury. A gift for a person who never once valued me, but only saw me as someone she could control. I wasn't going to give it to her, but I wanted her to see it, to see what she had lost. On the day of the brunch, I dressed simply but elegantly. No designer logos, no flashy heels, just a black jumpsuit and a simple gold necklace. The kind of understated elegance that people didn't notice until it was already gone. I arrived 5 minutes early, as I had promised, and was escorted into the private garden room of Belmore Gardens. The space was exactly as I'd imagined. Faux fancy, watered-down mimosas, decor that screamed expensive if you didn't know better. The only real luxury in the room, as far as I was concerned, was me. Everyone was already seated when I entered. Chloe and Ethan, of course, were at the head of the table. And there was Debbie, dripping in gold sequins, flashing that smile of hers that never quite reached her eyes. She blinked when she saw me, as though she'd forgotten I was coming. "Oh, you came," she said, forcing a smile. Her voice was laced with condescension, but it was still the same, unmistakable tone. "You could have dressed up more for the occasion." I nodded and took a seat at the far end of the table. My eyes scanned the room, and I could feel the tension building. The uncomfortable silence that followed was thick with expectation. Everyone was waiting for me to conform, to fall into the role they had designated for me. But I wasn't playing along. I wasn't going to apologize for my absence or my quiet dignity. I wasn't going to pretend I needed their approval to feel whole. I had moved on, and I was no longer seeking their validation. The brunch unfolded like a low-budget soap opera. Chloe handed Debbie a personalized jewelry box, and Ethan presented her with a monogrammed designer tote. Each gift was met with fake tears, exaggerated gratitude, and a flurry of applause. I watched in silence, a quiet observer of the carefully constructed world they had built. Then it was my turn. I didn't stand up. I didn't make a speech. I simply reached into my bag and placed a small, neatly wrapped box in front of Debbie. No fanfare. No show, just a soft, happy birthday. Her eyes narrowed as she stared at the box, her lips pulling into a tight smile. This better not be one of those minimalist gifts people post about. I didn't respond, just waited. And then, with a calm voice, I spoke. "That's a certificate for a luxury retreat in Switzerland, the kind of place where people go to disappear from the noise." Her face went pale. "You're lying." I smiled softly, letting the moment out. "I was going to give it to you, but now I realize you don't want me. You just want what I can give you. You always have." I stood up then, my back straight, my confidence unshakable. I gave her one last look, letting the silence hang in the air. "You told me to stay out of the picture," I said quietly. So I did. But I didn't disappear. I just got sharper. With that, I turned and walked out of the room. No one followed me. Not a single person moved as I made my exit. The taxi was waiting outside. I didn't hear from Debbie for weeks after the brunch. There were no more birthday greetings, no more half-hearted invitations to family events. I'm sure she told everyone I was ungrateful, that I had abandoned her, but it didn't matter. I had walked away from that life with a quiet sense of relief. But then one afternoon, as I was sitting on the balcony of my small apartment, enjoying a cup of tea, I received another message. It was from Debbie. "I know you're mad, but I'm your mother. It's time we put this behind us. I need you, Nancy. Brooke could use your help with her branding. Jared's trying to break into real estate, and we need your creative eye. I'm throwing a family dinner at Belmore Gardens next month. Don't be difficult. Please. I stared at the screen, feeling a sickening mix of frustration and something deeper. Maybe sorrow. It wasn't the apology I had hoped for, not even close. It was a desperate attempt to latch on to something that she'd ignored for years. I almost deleted it, but I didn't. I just let it sit there, like a reminder of how far we had fallen. Instead of replying, I walked to the small kitchen, opened the drawer where I kept the certificate from the Swiss retreat, and slid it into my bag. Later that night, I sat with Grandma Lily at her kitchen table, just as I had done so many times before. Her warm hands were wrapped around her cup of tea, and I could see the curiosity in her eyes as she watched me. She never asked about my work unless I brought it up, but tonight, she could sense something was different. "You heard from her, didn't you?" Grandma asked, her voice soft but knowing. I nodded, my heart heavy. "She wants me back, but not for me. Just for what I can do for her. She doesn't see me, Grandma, not for who I am. She wants the girl who fits her idea of family." Grandma sighed, her eyes sad but understanding. "That's the way she's always been. It's not about you, Nancy. It never was. You've got to remember that. I don't think I can ever forgive her for how she treated me, how she ignored me all those years." Grandma placed her hand over mine, her touch comforting. "Forgiveness isn't about her, sweetheart. It's about you. You can choose to carry the weight of anger, or you can choose to let it go. But that doesn't mean you have to let her back in. You've built a life for yourself now, one that matters. Don't let anyone, especially her, take that away from you." I felt a lump form in my throat. For so long I had wanted to be seen by Debbie, to have her acknowledge my worth. But now I realized that the only person who needed to see me was myself. The next morning, I packed a small gift box, carefully wrapping it up in soft paper. Inside was the Swiss retreat certificate, now with Grandma's name on it. She had always dreamed of seeing the Alps, and she had always been the one who saw me when no one else did. This was my way of saying thank you, of showing her that, no matter what had happened with the rest of my family, she would always have a place in my life. I wrote her a note, simple but heartfelt. For the woman who always saw me, even when I couldn't see myself. I drove to her house that afternoon, the air crisp with the promise of change. When I walked through the front door, Grandma was sitting in her favorite armchair, knitting quietly. When she looked up, she smiled, that knowing smile that made me feel safe. I handed her the box, and she looked at me, her eyes wide in surprise. "You didn't have to do this, Nancy," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I did," I replied, sitting down next to her. "You've always been there for me. You helped me see who I am, and I'm never going to forget that." Grandma opened the box, and her eyes filled with tears when she saw the certificate. She didn't say anything for a long moment. Instead, she just sat there, holding it in her hands, her tears glistening in the soft afternoon light. "This is too much, dear," she whispered, wiping her eyes. "But thank you. I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "You've already given me everything I need." That night, after dinner, we sat outside on the porch, the sky darkening into twilight. I could hear the distant sounds of the city, but here, in this quiet space, I felt at peace. Grandma Lily's presence was a constant in my life, a steady foundation. She was the one who believed in me when no one else did, and now, with every step I took, I carried that belief with me. Carla, Debbie, would probably keep telling everyone I was ungrateful, that I owed her something, but I knew the truth. I didn't owe her a thing. What I had built on my own, with my own hands. I had created a life that no one could take away from me. And in the end, that was all that mattered. The family photo might have been perfect without me, but the life I had built, it was better because I wasn't in it. Through everything, I learned that true belonging doesn't come from fitting into someone else's picture. It comes from creating your own. For so long, I had yearned for my mother's approval, hoping she'd see me, hoping she'd recognize my worth. But what I realized is that my worth was never hers to give. It was mine all along. The lesson isn't about seeking validation from others. It's about embracing who you are, even when no one else does. By doing that, I finally found the freedom to live for myself, not for anyone else's expectations. That's when I truly became free.